Hello and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. You may notice that we are wearing the exact same thing as the last pod. That is because it has been approximately 6 minutes of me pacing the room and John pacing his own room, and then we're recording back to back. So we don't have a lot to say about the Seahawks-Vikings game because it hasn't happened yet at the time of recording, but this pod we are going to break down what we think will happen in this Seahawks-Bears game on Thursday night. Is that Thursday or is that the Friday game, actually, now that I think about it?
Who's to say?
December 26th is the Thursday game. Gosh, I just had to do some quick math. So we'll talk that. We will talk, obviously, some value dogs. And then we're going to talk college football bowl games because that is coming up. And those are some exciting games with the Washington State teams going up against some bigger opponents than we were really expecting, I think, in these bowl games. So it'll be fun to talk that. And then, obviously, a little college basketball while that's going on. We didn't get to talk Gonzaga's loss to UConn, which I didn't get to rub in John's face. So
let me out.
We're going to talk through that, and then a little Kraken before we sign off for Christmas and give you guys a little respite from our voices. Anything to say before we get started, John?
No, let's do it.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John, like I said, there is no game that has happened at the time of recording, so we can't talk Seahawks-Vikings, but if you were to react, what would be the first word coming out of your mouth?
Domination. I can't believe. I hope Sam Darnold's okay. That injury looked pretty bad on the field. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But then for Sam Howell to throw for 700 yards and 12 touchdowns. I knew he had it in him, so I was proud to see him.
Law of averages had to get some yards somewhere.
He averages 350 yards a game, so he had 20 last game. 700 actually makes sense when you think about it. But so we have no idea what's going on in that Minnesota game. We aren't going to talk about playoff picture or anything like that because obviously so much of that will be determined by what happens against Minnesota. But just talking about this matchup against the Chicago Bears, I guess I want to start just because I want to talk a little Bears. Obviously, fair to assume that all our fans are fairly schooled in the Hawks, but this Bears team is just kind of wacky. They've obviously had a lot of ups and downs. It's been a lot of downs recently. Their offense is just really, really bad. They are 31st in the NFL in passing yards per game, which as a Caleb Williams fantasy owner does not surprise me in the least. They're also 21st on the ground in terms of rushing game, 25th in points for. They just really, really struggled to move the ball, struggled to convert in the red zone. A lot of that's based on offensive line play, but fact of the matter is we will not have to worry about them dropping 30 against this Hawks team. Their strength is their defense. They are still, which honestly, considering they're 25th in points for, they're 11th in points against, which is even more impressive because obviously when your offense is that bad, your defense is on the field more time you get tired, more drives against you by other offenses. So they're 11th in points against at 22 points a game. I think that's an impressive stat, and I think that's where the conversation needs to start about this matchup with the Seahawks.
Yeah, you look at just their counting numbers right now, and Caleb Williams, counting-wise, has almost 3,000 yards. And again, this is before this next week, so he'll probably surpass 3,000 yards by the time this podcast comes out. Currently 17 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Really good ratios, honestly. DeAndre Swift, 212 carries for 800 yards. Nothing to scoff at. But really what shines is this team's defense and special teams' ability to get them good field position, and that's when they're really able to play well. So the Bears, a little scary on that front, especially when the Seahawks have been so prone to giving the ball up short yardage situations for other teams. If Geno is playing against this Bears team, like the turnovers in the red zone have been a huge concern for Geno, and we didn't really talk about that in the last pod, but that is something that he's going to be under duress a lot during this game, and he's going to have to make smart decisions. And so this Bears team defensively really does scare me. Another just thing that I want to know, Rome Odunze has been pretty good coming on. Same with Moore. Sorry, just blanked on the name.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore. For the Bears, he's been coming on as well. Like the receiving core has done a lot better these last few weeks, and has really turned it on. But really, it's going to come down to this offense holding onto the football, making smart plays, and making prolonged drives. Just doing exactly what we just said. Keeping the Bears defense on the field for long stretches of time, make them tired, make them work, because the Bears are 4-10. Even though they have a nice defense, they're still losing these games. Like, just don't allow them to catch up to you, and you'll still be okay.
They've also lost 8 straight and given up 30 points in 3 of their last 4. So it's fair to say that this team is spiraling to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Not the worst time to be getting this matchup. They should also realistically be thinking about draft picks by this point in the season. What is to be gained by sending Caleb out there to play their hardest? We don't know the result of this game, but they will have played the Lions last week. We can go ahead and assume that went poorly. And they played the Packers to end the season. So just for what it's worth, an absolutely brutal end of the season. This team played Packers, Vikings, Lions, Niners, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers. That is just...
It's almost like they're in the hardest division in football,
Far and away. But that is by far the hardest schedule of any team not named the Packers, Vikings, or Lions. Really gross. Things to watch. Geno's ability to move the ball against this defense is going to be big. Hopefully, he's back and healthy by then. I don't think we have any indication that he would miss 1 week, let alone 2.
Yeah.
And then our defense's ability to do what so many teams up to this point have done, which is really stymie and frustrate this Bears offense. They should have every opportunity to have one of their best defensive games of the season. I implore that they step up and do it, because obviously, regardless of the results of the Vikings game, this is a huge game for the Seahawks.
They need to win this game. Yeah.
And against this offense, all the tape on all the ways to frustrate this team, they should have no excuses. This should be a defensive masterpiece by Mike Macdonald, or I will be very frustrated.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another note, you're talking about the Bears tanking and not necessarily, competing in these last couple games. There's a world where Caleb Williams doesn't even play in these last 2 weeks. Like, they don't want him to get injured. He's been getting beat up the entire season. I think he had a hamstring injury at one point. It's like, they don't want to put their star number 1 pick under duress for the last 3 weeks of the season against the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Packers for no reason. There's a world where they just don't play him. So we'll see what happens this weekend against Detroit, see if they end up taking him out at halftime or something like that. This Bears offense is just not potent enough right now, and I really think the Seahawks should have, like you said, a masterclass for Mike Macdonald defensively. And I think they should have the ability to stop this Bears team. I don't really see anything that would concern me unless, for whatever reason, DeAndre Swift decides to have, 200 yards of rushing. Like, unless that happens, which I don't think the Seahawks team is capable of allowing that.
Nor is DeAndre Swift very capable of achieving that.
No. But that's the only way this Bears team can keep up with the Seahawks. Again, I think the Seahawks are going to score 20 points. The Bears have still, like you said, they've been spiraling. They've given up 30 in 3 of their last 4. The Seahawks should score 20. The Bears should score 13, and it shouldn't be an issue for the Seahawks. But as always, we're still a little concerned because the Seahawks are so hit or miss, is what I'll say.
Yeah, in this 8-game losing streak, the Bears have scored more than 20 points once. A 27-point outing and a loss against the Vikings. So, obviously, 20 is the line to get to beat this team, and I trust the Hawks to do that. I think DeAndre Swift going for 200 is an interesting route. I think the more realistic way that they could blow this is if the Bears defense scores a touchdown.
That's fair,
If Geno throws a pick 6 or if somebody coughs up the ball for a return 6, this Bears defense is very good, and they are capable of generating turnovers. I think that's the more realistic route for how did this happen. Some really crucial defensive plays by the Bears. So I want the Hawks offense to be effective, but I also want them to play very, very smart. Understand that you're basically playing against 14 points all game, and plan accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. Geno needs to be safe with the ball. He's, I've said it already, but it's like in the red zone, he's a little bit more risky, and to his credit, that's okay, especially against this team. This team has trouble sustaining long drives, but you cannot turn it over in their territory or anything like that. or I guess in Seahawks territory. You can't give them good field position because they're a Bears team that will be able to score. They'll be able to kick field goals if you give them the opportunity to. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, should be easy. I think that's all there is to say.
Yes. All right. Again, we can move on. I guess, yeah. Anything else to say before we move off the Seahawks?
No, Value Dogs time, baby.
All right.
Round two of
the day. We will not, again, we don't have any information from last week, so I can't say that I went 3-0 and John went 0-3 and I'm on the verge of coming back, but I can assume that that's what happened, right?
No way do I go 0-6 in 2 crucial weeks. This isn't fantasy football. That couldn't happen to me.
So with my week 17 Value Dogs picks, actually, yeah, I'm going first. Screw it. I want the first pick. I gave you first pick an hour ago, so
take it.
With my first pick, I am going for the Steelers for the third straight week. Wait, maybe fourth? Third straight week, sorry. Third straight week. They are playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and they are plus 2.5 as of right now. The Steelers, again, if George Pickens is playing, especially if Mahomes is still a little beat up at this point, obviously the Chiefs are going to want to compete. They still want that number 1 seed in the AFC, but the Steelers are good. 2.5 points is a lot, and this is kind of this 2-week stretch is going to determine if the Steelers are really a competitor or if they're like a fringe, like if they beat the Ravens I guess when you're listening to this last week, then that'll really solidify the Steelers as like, in line with the Chiefs or the Bills. If they lose, if they're out of the AFC North division title race, or if they, for whatever reason, fall out of that, that might mean the Steelers are just not very good. But for now, I like the Steelers plus 2.5.
Yeah, I like that pick. Pittsburgh getting points. They've been just awesome against the spread all season. Honestly, we should have picked Pittsburgh every week. It seems like they've been getting points most of the time and covering most of the time. So also a game that, that might be a huge game for Kansas City in terms of defending their, number 1 seed against Buffalo. But maybe by that point, they'll have things a little more locked up and can take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit. So like Tomlin, like picking points on the Steelers. I think with my first pick of this week, I'm not picking the Bears. I can't do it. They've hurt me too many times. Instead, I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos plus 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are getting a lot of love these last couple of weeks. Their offense is obviously still incredibly potent, but by week 17, what are they going to have to play for is question one. And the other thing is, this is the most one-sided team in football. They have a top 4 offense in the NFL, and the worst defense statistically in the entire NFL. This Broncos team, on the other hand, is much more balanced. Their defense is their strength. I like them going strength on strength against the Bengals. And then their offense is not great, but it is fully capable of taking advantage of bad defenses like Cincinnati. I can see them eating against this Cincinnati defense. Bo Nix is going to look like an MVP candidate.
I think this game relies a lot on what happened last week in terms of the Chargers-Broncos game, because if the Chargers lose that game, then the Bengals really have an opportunity to climb back in and claim that playoff spot. And even in this game, if the Broncos, lost that one, and there's still a chance that the Bengals could win this game and tie the Broncos, and therefore through the tiebreaker overtake them. Things like that can happen, and so I think the Bengals team will be hungry, but the Broncos really want to put them away, and so the +3 is going to be pretty nice for you.
Agreed.
With my second pick, I can't believe you didn't take it. We just talked about how good this team was last week, and for us, we just talked about this an hour ago. The Green Bay Packers +2 against the Minnesota Vikings is crazy to me. The Minnesota Vikings have kind of been flying by the what's the saying? Flying by the
seat of their pants.
The seat of their pants. I wanted to say shoe or something like that, but that was incorrect. Flying by the seat of their pants, and the Green Bay Packers look so good against the Seahawks, and I think they'll look just as good this upcoming week. And so I think the Packers-Vikings game, getting 2 points for them against a Vikings team who I low-key think the Seahawks might beat, I think the Packers can win that and cover easily.
Yeah, that is a good line. I was looking at that one pretty hard. I think the Packers are a better team, so +2 points is great. If it was +3, it would have been a no-brainer. But to me, it's kind of a pick 'em. I think the Packers are a little better, so love getting the points there. But I'm going to let you have it. This week just has a lot of good lines. It's worth noting, a lot of these lines are going to change when our viewers are listening to them because we're doing this a week early. But screw you, viewers. We can only call it from the current moment. And if you can't get these delicious lines that we're looking at, then it sounds like a you problem for living in the past. With my second pick, I'm taking maybe my favorite line of the week. The Carolina Panthers +9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, I'm going Carolina Panthers back-to-back. Yes, my last data is them getting their butts kicked by the Dallas Cowboys. But I just think they're playing with nothing to lose. They're just going out, rolling the ball out, having fun. This is an in-division game, always a little more competitive. I love the way the Panthers have been playing, and they're getting 9 points against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are beat to hell. I love Baker Mayfield as much as the next guy, but what leads somebody to think that they're going to win this game by 9? This should be Carolina +3.5. I don't know where they're getting 9.
Yeah, honestly, there's also a world where Tampa Bay has just solidified their. Is that NFC South? That's NFC South, right? Not East.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they could have just solidified their NFC South division title. Don't play anybody because they've dealt with injuries the entire season. So Tampa Bay might just be sitting them, and might be an opportunity for Carolina to pounce on that. I like it a lot. With my third and final pick for our Week 17 value dogs, your man is going with a crazy line, but I'm taking it because I have a lot of faith in this team. I'm taking the Jets +9.5 against the Bills.
You can't. You cannot do that.
I can and I will. Let me find the line just to make sure. Yeah, it's still 9.5.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
I'm taking the Jets +9.5 because, first of all, the Jets have actually looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. And I know we don't want to talk about it because we hate Aaron Rodgers on this pod, but the Jets have looked pretty good. And 9.5, again, it's a lot of points. The Jets are honestly better than the Panthers. Could be, better than the Panthers.
Absolutely.
And I think the Bills at that point will either have solidified their number 2 slot or, will have solidified their number 1 spot if the Chiefs lose. It's also an AFC East rival matchup. Like the Jets Bills is going to be a good game. Aaron Rodgers playing for his next contract, if he's going to even play next year. It's like all that stuff means that the Jets are going to try and keep it close. And 9.5 is 3 field goals. That's a lot of points. So I'm taking that.
Yeah, 3 field goals and a cover in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you're selling me a little bit. Jets have been playing a lot better recently. Devontae Adams is starting to look like the Devontae of old. Rodgers has been looking better. And I think the strongest argument for you is, if Buffalo at this point is like, okay, we cannot win the number 1 overall seed, there will be no reason for them to be playing guys. And, if that occurs, this line is going to change dramatically, but I like you jumping on it early. And even if both teams just play good games, 9.5 points is a ton. I just made that argument for the Panthers. My only argument against is that Buffalo is playing some of their best football right now.
Josh Allen is a monster,
Yeah. I think the likelihood is that they will still have a chance at the number 1 overall seed, and so will be playing very hard. And Josh Allen not only is playing at MVP level, he is very likely to and very much wants league MVP. And that means putting up big numbers every single week. They have been smacking teams around. They just finished smacking around the Detroit Lions. If they can do that to Detroit, I kind of think they can do it to the Jets. But I understand 9.5 points is a ton, and the Jets' offense has looked potent. So their ability to hang within 10 points seems reasonable. I'm not going to argue too much.
There's also just a ton of really crappy lines, honestly. Like the Patriots playing the Chargers, the Saints playing the Raiders, the Colts playing the Giants, the Titans playing the Jaguars. Like there's not a lot of great games. Even Cardinals, Rams, like the Cardinals are only getting 3 right now, and I would expect that to go even wider by the time this pod comes out. So 9.5 was just like very valuable at this point.
Yeah, a lot of value there. You may be surprised to know that my final pick, which I like a lot, is in those names you listed.
Take it, man. I don't want it.
With my third pick, I'm taking the Las Vegas Raiders +3 against the New Orleans Saints.
Wow.
New Orleans is awful, and they just lost far and away their most effective weapon for the rest of the season. Alvin Kamara is done for the year. This offense is going to look significantly worse without him. I think without Kamara, they're probably the worst team in the NFL. I think the Raiders, have a little bit of talent on both sides of the ball, and they're getting 3 points. This is obviously a poop bowl matchup between these two teams, but I'm getting 3 points for a team that did not just lose by far and away its most effective offensive player.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yeah. Goddamn right, yeah. That's what I thought. Stunned silence.
I don't know, man. We just talked about how the Jaguars are going to beat the Raiders. For us, we just talked about that, and I do think the Saints as a whole, I guess without Kamara, might not be better, but
no Kamara, no Olave. Who's on this offense?
What's the guy's name? Not their number. Not Spencer Rattler, the other guy. They've got that guy.
That guy? I don't know which guy you're talking about.
I don't know. The guy who was all over Twitter for his interesting Twitter posts.
But, is that Michael Thomas? He might the Hills MT?
He might still be on the team, but I have no idea. Either way, yeah, this Saints team is bad. The Raiders have, one blue chipper in Brock Bowers, and that's more than the Saints have in this game. So I can appreciate that one for you.
Blue chip and 3 points. I love it.
All right. That will conclude our Week 17 value dogs, unless you have anything else to say, John. But it's a quick one in here. We finished Seahawks and value dogs in under 25 minutes, which is so rare for us.
Thank goodness. If we get this pod under an hour, I'm going to be so excited.
So next thing to talk about is college football. We've got 2 bowl games coming up this week. Obviously, Wazoo playing on December 27th against Syracuse in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl, or as I'm calling it, the Trying to Prevent Streamers from Taking Over Your Life Bowl. DirecTV really doing their best. But yeah, Wazoo plays Syracuse in that, and that's going to be a tough one. Instant reactions looking at it?
A really fun matchup for this Washington State team. Washington State, obviously, very pass-heavy team, or at the very least, very quarterback-heavy. But there is no more pass-heavy team in college football than the Syracuse Orange. They are first in college football D1 in passing yards per game, 363 yards per game, led by quarterback Kyle McCord. Ohio State reject, revitalized in Syracuse. He's been awesome. So I'm looking for an absolute explosive performance. Their rushing attack is much more mid. They're 127th, under 100 yards a game. And they are 94th in points against, allowing 28 per game. So I'm excited to see what Wazoo's offense can do against them. But I'm not expecting a ton from Wazoo's defense against Kyle McCord in this potent Syracuse Orange offense. I'm hoping that this is a absolute fireworks show and that it'll be one of the funnest bowl games to watch.
Yeah, this is going to be a 52-49 type game.
Yeah, I don't care who wins. If that's what we get, I'm just going to be sitting back smiling.
We've been hyping up Mateer in terms of his passing yards and just quality of play for this entire season. He's currently sitting at 3150 total passing yards. He's got 29 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. McCord has 1,200 more passing yards than John Mateer at this point in the season.
Yeah,
4,325 basically. 29 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, so a little bit more prone to interceptions. But obviously, Wazoo does not really have a rushing game. Their leading rusher is Mateer with 826 yards, 15 touchdowns on the ground. That's kind of their rushing attack is through quarterback play. So we will see how that goes. But like you said, it's going to be an explosive game. Syracuse is minus 11 right now. It opened at minus 4.5 and it's moved to minus 11, which is kind of crazy. People betting a lot of money against this Washington State team. And
disrespect.
Who's to say? At this point, we might hear that John Mateer isn't going to play because he's got to save his body for the portal, anything like that. We might, honestly, the transfer portal being open right now, he might not even be on Wazoo's roster by the time they play this game, which is another crazy thing to talk about. But it's going to be a fun one.
I think if that was going to happen, though, I do think he's going to move on, but I think we would have heard rumblings about it. They've had a good season. I kind of think he just wants to get one last game in. Syracuse defense, he's not playing Georgia. He doesn't have to worry about getting killed. Just go out there, suit up, throw the ball around, have some fun, throw 3 picks. Nobody cares. Yeah. His stats are already big. Nothing he's going to do is going to throw off his stats.
Yeah, I'm not expecting anything, I would love for him to play. The other thing is the over-unders at 59.5. Guys, smash the over. Smash the over.
Smash. Yeah, I like that too. Now, this is going to be, all things considered, hopefully it's going to be an offensive show. To your point, Kyle McCord just had his career season. He might not be in a Syracuse uniform by the time this game plays.
Yeah.
But all we can do is work with what we have. These are 2 of the most biggest output college football quarterbacks. I'm not going to say they're two of the best, but they put up two of the biggest numbers. Yeah, I want a fireworks show. Syracuse should be favored. I think 11's too much. I think Syracuse by 4.5 is probably what I would set that line at.
Wow, look at you following ESPN to a T from their starting line.
Oh, was that the starting line? Let's go, baby.
Yep.
Hire me, ESPN. Hire everybody else. Call it JSPN. Let's go.
All right, anything else to say about this Wazoo-Syracuse game?
No, it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's in San Diego. Going to be great conditions
so exciting
to throw the ball. Make some popcorn before you turn this one on, folks.
Yes. All right, let's talk about what will be a little bit less exciting for our UW fans in what is the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. If you enjoy Frosted Flakes, you will enjoy this bowl game. Louisville against Washington. Louisville comes into this game 8-4. Currently, the spread actually opened at -4.5 and has gone in UW's favor. UW is now, or the line's only -2.5 for Louisville. So going kind of the other way from the Wazoo game. An interesting matchup, to say the least. Do we know if Will Rogers is going to be the starting quarterback? No, we do not. Do we know if Jonah Coleman's going to play? No, we don't know what's going to happen with this Washington team, especially at the quarterback position. But they held their own against Oregon for the first quarter and a half. And I think Louisville is, a team that UW can hold their own against. Will they be within 2.5 points at the end? Probably not. Louisville beat Clemson this year. Louisville has had a pretty decent season overall at 8-4. Going to be a tough one, but I think it'll still be exciting.
I hope you're right. I'm a little less optimistic for fireworks, at least on both sides in this game. This Louisville team has played a tough schedule. They have a 7-point loss to a Notre Dame team that's making the playoff, a 7-point loss to an SMU team that's going to make the playoffs, a 7-point loss to a Miami team that just barely missed the playoffs, and then the one that stands out is a 3-point loss to Stanford. That doesn't really mean much. But yeah, this is a team that beat Clemson and then lost to 3 college football playoff teams, or at least teams of that caliber. I think they're really good. They are 39th in the nation in rushing yards per game, almost 200 a game. That's the biggest red flag for me. Obviously, UW has really struggled against these teams that can just pound the ball against them. And one other just glaring thing to me is that in terms of points against general defense, Louisville is tied for 51st in the nation, 23.3. UW is 46th in the nation at 22.8. Very close matchup on that side of the ball, at least in terms of points for. Offensively, UW is tied for 109th in the nation at 22.5 points scored per game. Obviously, a lot of red zone issues there, a lot of mistakes in there. Their offense has been better than that in general, but it is what it is. Louisville, 9th in the country, 38 points per game scored. This team puts up points when they get into the red zone. They don't miss. They do not turn the ball over. They score. This is the line that to me should be 11.5. I think we're about even on defense, and I think their offense is not only better on paper, but a lot better when it comes to executing, when it comes to avoiding mistakes, avoiding penalties. I think this might be a little bit more one-sided than we would like.
Yeah, I was hoping that somebody had entered the transfer portal for Louisville, and that's why people were betting on UW or something like that. But their backup quarterback, Pierce Clarkson, has entered the transfer portal, he was a high recruit, but their main quarterback. Let me pull up his stats real quick.
Tyler Shaw, he's been good. He's got
Tyler Shaw,
3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns. Compared to Rogers, 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. His QBR is about 1.5 times Will Rogers. So
yeah,
he's not exactly a good matchup.
He's also a senior. He's not going to leave. He's not going to the league or anything like that. He's playing for his final game in Louisville. I'm a little concerned for this one.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Super Bowl for this kid.
Yeah. So I really think Louisville is going to try and put on a show for their fans and let their team walk it off with a victory. Especially, UW's kind of first year back after what was a huge transition year for them. It's just kind of a place where UW, they won 6 games. They're going to be happy with that. They can build on that for the future. But right now, they're just not really set to win this game, is all I'll say.
Yeah, agreed. This season did not start in a great place, and I don't think it's gone in a great place. Hasn't been a disaster. This is This is not the worst case scenario we would have pictured. This is actually pretty close to what we thought this team would end up being. 6-6. We might have nailed that going in. So fun to get a bowl game. Fun to play a team as talented as Louisville. I hope that they can show up in a real way. My thought will be that it does not quite happen that way.
Yeah, and we can move on from there right now. Let's stop talking about UW's football team, and maybe we can start talking about UW's basketball team if you want to, John.
Please, I don't have anything on UW's basketball. I thought we talked about great a little too much last week. Do you have anything you want to say on UW basketball?
No, not a ton. They've been pretty subpar, 7-3 on the season. Their next game at the time of recording, they play Wazoo tonight. So it's the 18th of December. They'll have played Wazoo tonight by the time you hear this. And I'm going to use that as kind of a baseline. It's like if they lose to Wazoo, who pulled their basically seventh man off their team last year and has turned him into their leading scorer, it's like UW is not in a great spot. So we will see. UW is favored in that one, and I think this is Wazoo's kind of biggest game of the season. They've played Nevada and ended up winning that game, but this is the next biggest game. So we'll
plus
see if
rivalry wise, this is their, if they do anything, they want to beat UW. It's like Gonzaga, UCLA. Like, we don't really care what else happens. Just get us that UCLA win.
Yes. So it's just an exciting one. I just wanted to touch on it because I'm excited. We'll be reacting to it on Twitter and everything like that as this game's going on tonight. Again, I'm going to be live tweeting, I'm sure, during this one. So follow along, check out UW, and just, if they win this game, if they end up winning their first couple Big Ten games after, I guess once they get into kind of the main bulk of the regular season of college basketball, if they end up kind of taking off, I would watch this Washington team because it has the potential to turn it around. They just need to gel together, and they just haven't yet. So we'll see if that's changed.
100%. That kind of covers UW and Wazoo.
Yes.
They're in a bit of a doldrums in both of their seasons. There'll be more to talk about as seasons progress. Let's get it over with. Let's dump the cold water and talk about it.
Give me the opportunity.
Gonzaga has played one game since we last talked. The UConn Huskies in Madison Square Garden, basically a home game for UConn. A lot of Huskies fans there. And they pulled out a frustrating, sometimes thrilling 77-71 victory over Gonzaga. I have plenty to say, but I want you to get your licks in first. So what do you have to say?
I guess I don't have a ton to say. I think my just question is this team as good as you and Rosenberger thought it was at the start of the season? Like they're 7-3 right now. Their 3 losses have been against good teams, but we kind of talked and we were like, okay, this team's going to end up top 10. Do we still think they're a top 10 team in college basketball? They can still make a run in the tournament, all that kind of things. But do we think that they're as good as you guys thought they were at the start of the season?
The short answer is no. I think I really saw them as like a top 3 team in the country type of team. Like, might as well be favorites to win the title type of team. And I do not think they are that. I think they can grow into it. I think their flaws are very apparent and very fixable. But yeah, that they simply aren't that type of team right now. Are they a top 10 team in the country? Yeah, they are. They are a 3-loss team. They're ranked 13. Them and UConn are the only 2 3-loss teams in the top 15 in the nation. And it's, UConn, it's because they're the defending national champions and they've got a couple good wins and 3 horrendous losses. For Gonzaga, it's like, we don't really have that many great wins. We've got Baylor, which is a great win, and San Diego State was a good win. But mainly it's just because none of our losses, and they matter a lot to me. All 3 of them drove me completely fucking nuts. They drove me up the wall, but none of their losses really matter. They blew regulation against West Virginia. They should have walked away with that win and let it go to overtime and lost. Kentucky crawled back all the way through that second half, went to overtime. We lost by 1. It's like, Kentucky's 4 in the nation. That loss doesn't matter. This UConn game, we were down 14-2 to start the game. Crawled all the way back and just couldn't. I think at one point we took the lead by 1 point in the second half, but that's all it was. It was just a rock fight trying to get back in the lead and then just was not able to hold on to it down the stretch. One of the worst calls, just, if we want to talk a little bit about this game specifically, the worst missed call of the season against Gonzaga in this game. Very frustrating. At one point in the second half, the refs just swallowed their whistles, which I'm okay with. But going down the stretch, with, I think, 30 seconds left, down 2. I'm trying to remember if it was Nemhard or Caliph Battle was driving to the basket and went up against, or no, maybe it was Graham Ike, who was kind of posting up, starting center for UConn Terrace Reed Jr. And Reed had 4 fouls. He was 1 away from fouling out. And Ike went up, and Reed turned around and just swiped both of his arms with his arm. Just could not be a more obvious foul. Just completely blatant, and didn't get the call, and it was a turnover, and UConn ended up scoring to go up 4, and it was that essentially ended the game. Yeah. That was very frustrating because that could have tied the game, and it would have fouled out their center. Things may have gone differently, but it's a 6-point loss to the preseason number 2 team in the country. So this is why Gonzaga is still 13, and now they're reaching the point of their schedule where they probably won't lose another game until the year ends. So they're going to end the year in the top 10. They're just too many of these other teams are going to lose multiple games. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish as high as 7 or 8. I would expect that they will get a 3 seed, would be my current guess in the tournament. And, if they build the way that they should build, they can make a run at the national title. But no, they are not the potentially undefeated, super dominant college basketball team I thought they were. Yeah,
I think you said it early in that little bit of a rant, but I appreciate it.
That was a full-blown rant.
You said a little bit early in that. They just have flaws that are exploitable. They're a flawed team that can be exploited because their centers aren't big. They don't match up super well defensively when they have both Ike and Nemhard in. And as a duo, that duo is their offensive centerpiece. So it's tough for Gonzaga as a whole to really function super well in the entirety of their game when their stars are on the court. But yeah, at the same time, they're super capable of scoring, and they haven't really lived up to the scoring potential that we thought that they had at the start of the season. They haven't scored 90. I need to check they had obviously the great overtime game. That was overtime against Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. They've scored 90. They scored 90 against
I'm
Davidson.
Thinking 95. They were scoring 100 points a game for the first 3 weeks of last season.
They scored 101 against Baylor to open the year. They scored 88 against Arizona State next, and then 113 against UMass Lowell. So
they haven't broken 90 since then, though.
Except once against Davidson. But yes, your point is well taken. And so let me tell you why. Because you're right. Their offense has come down. It's been, and this is part of what makes it so frustrating, it's been individual performances. It has not been everybody on this team playing okay and then they lose. Against West Virginia, Graham Ike, preseason, player of the year nominee, had 5 points and sucked. In their loss against UConn, Graham Ike had 4 points and sucked. Against Kentucky, Graham Ike had a great first half, struggled in the second half, and Nolan Hickman had his worst game as a collegiate basketball player. So in all of their losses, you can point to individual important players on this team who were genuinely awful. Not 10 points and 2 assists and just didn't hustle as much as you wanted. Really, really bad. So that's what makes, if they just play average games, we win all 3 of those games. And then this isn't as much of a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree with you.
Yeah. Offensively, shooting has come down a lot since early season. I think that's the biggest reason those numbers have dropped. But I'm not really that worried about their offense. They've had a stretch here where they've been playing, good defenses. For me, their biggest weakness is clearly rebounding. Arizona State, West Virginia, Kentucky, UConn, all big, long teams, all teams that were able to exploit them on the offensive and defensive glass. I think that's the one thing where it's I don't see a clear solution for it because this team is just, we don't have a really big center. We can play big lineups, but few likes to play 3 guards. So I think that's going to be a problem all year. Shooting, this team has some good shooters on it. Caliph Battle is a way better shooter than I thought. He's been a very welcome inclusion. Games like the Kentucky game where we missed 16 straight threes in the second half. Yeah, if those games happen, we're not going to win anything. But this team is a better shooting team than some teams past where it's shooting is a huge weakness. We're okay at shooting. We got a solid defense. We got a good point guard. We got great post play. For me, it's rebounding.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes with rebounding and just a little bit of just like the pace of play. But like I said, Nembhard and Ike's pick and roll is just like, it's a 2-man game. It slows the game down. It's not what we're used to from a Gonzaga style offense, where it's just like the shell drill up and down the sides of the court, layup after layup, and just like super fast paced. And in that same way, it's like you give it to individual scorers, like a guy like Caliph Battle, even Ajayi, who as a scorer is a little bit better in isolation than as a spot-up shooter and doesn't necessarily work in the pick and roll. It's like these guys are more individual play styles, and they're still figuring out how those gel together to create a really good offense. And again, they're doing fine, but I can see them getting better as the season goes along. So I'm not going to hold it against them, but right now it is something that I've noticed.
Yeah. And it's a long season. The West Virginia game, they literally just turned the ball over instead of shooting free throws to win.
Yeah.
Kentucky game, they missed 15 consecutive threes in the second half. And UConn, Liam McNeely, a freshman, had 26 points on 13 shots. And Graham Ike, our starting center, had 3 points. So, yeah, it's like, I'm not worried about this team. They obviously need to improve if we want to win the national championship. But, like, this team can play with anybody. Like, I wouldn't be... If they were +6 against Tennessee or Auburn, like, I would take the 6. This team can play with anybody.
Yeah.
They just... It's rebounding, and also, I guess, with 3 losses, you have to say late-game execution as well. They need to get better at, but this is a good team. Caliph Battle is awesome. Drives me crazy that every week we're not just talking about how awesome Caliph Battle is. He had 21 against UConn, 4 of 6 from 3. Dude's got stones the size of bowling balls. Love this kid. Awesome addition. Really too bad Ike didn't do anything so that he could win at home. He's a New Jersey kid, so I would have loved to see him get that dub at MSG. But, love that kid. So, Gonzaga, it's very, very frustrating, but I'm not worried about them.
It'll come around. I just had to get you frustrated at some point on the pod today. Otherwise, it's not a Sound Up Seattle podcast,
I'm all worked up.
All right. With that, we've kind of hit on everything. And again, if we talked last week, if the Mariners come out with anything, we will have specific podcasts to discuss those trades, those moves. But for right now, quick Kraken discussion. Then we can hop off, John. A quick 50-minute pod. Just a nice, easy one.
Let me out.
So the Kraken, I think the last time we checked in, they had lost against the Panthers. And again, today is the 18th of December, so it's a little earlier. But they just lost yesterday, I believe, to the Senators 3-0. They lost to the Lightning 5-1 before that. And we don't have to talk about it too much because we keep talking about the Kraken, and every time we're like, hey, this team's middling to low end of the NHL spectrum of teams. And nothing has changed that. Schultz retired. I guess that's something to note. 2-time Cup-winning defenseman Schultz on the Kraken team retired today, 10 hours ago.
Yeah, we like Schultz a lot. Sad to see him go. He was obviously part of that fun run a couple years ago, but sad to see him go. But 100%, it's funny. We were talking. It was after the Panthers lost. They were playing the Bruins while we were recording, and they were up like 3-1. We're like, I guess if they win this game, that's something. The Bruins are really good. Won that one 5-1. It's like, okay, can we turn that into some momentum? We play the Lightning, who are one place behind the Bruins in the standings in the Atlantic, and lose 5-1. It's like, okay, no, we're just doing this.
Yeah, we did trade Will Borgen for 2 2025 draft picks earlier today as well to the Rangers. So that's something to.
I like that trade.
Sorry. Yeah, we traded Will Borgen and 2 draft picks for Capo Caco. God, what a weird name to the right wing.
Ooh. That is interesting. I don't know anything about Capo, but hopefully he's a young player with some upside.
Yeah, because as of right now, this team needs more offensive potency and just needs. Oh, we've talked about it so much already. Consistency. They just need more consistency and just to play together. And it's something that we just haven't seen. They're 15 and, in John's word, 15 and 18. In the hockey world, 15, 16 and 2. 6th in the Pacific. That hasn't changed. We've been talking about them for 3 weeks, and they've been 6th in the division for the last 3 weeks. So no real big things to update you on there. But anything to say, John?
Yeah, Capo Cahonen, a Finnish professional ice goaltender. So interesting. Getting another goalie in there is interesting. 1996 date of birth in Helsinki, Finland. That's really all I need to know. I'm sold. I'm sure he's excellent.
I don't know if you've got the right guy.
Yeah, it's got to be. Capo Cajonen?
I've got Capo Caco.
Yeah, Capo Caconen is his name.
No, Capo Caco, Finnish ice hockey right winger from the Rangers.
There is no way that there's a Capo Caco and a Capo Caconen that are both Finnish professional ice hockey players.
That's 100% the case. And this guy is born in 2001, February 13th, day before Valentine's Day. What a guy.
This is hilarious. We have not done our research. Next time when we talk about the Kraken, we will delve in to the trades that they've made and what it's going to look like.
We were not prepared to talk about the Kraken today. We just wanted to get this one over with because they've been pretty subpar.
Yeah, they have been pretty subpar. Okay, that's enough. I'm tired of being embarrassed.
Well, it's late for us. What can I say? We've been doing this for the last 3 hours. All right. With that being the case, is there anything else to say before I sign us off, John? We did it.
Nope. Next big Zag game is against UCLA, the only one that matters.
Yes, that's going to be big. I guess for John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright. This has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, please feel free to give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find Sound Up Seattle on YouTube. Subscribe. Get our weekly full podcasts and podcast segments where we talk Seahawks, talk Mariners, talk college football, whatever it is. We talk everything. You can find Sound Up Seattle on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. Email us your questions, comments, concerns about our NHL knowledge at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere it's important. And you can find John
spending Christmas in San Antonio, Texas, where we know Christmas will be green and bright.
Well, I'll be back in Seattle, so I'll be enjoying the nice, cool breeze and outdoors of Seattle weather.
Two ships in the night, you and me.
I guess with all that being said, let's go Hawks, baby. We got to keep this Go Hawks train rolling. They're going for the playoff spot.
Go Zags. We need it.